At Rubberband, we empower each other through positivity, kindness, and practical advice. Join a community of thousands of peers who understand the unique challenges you face. Rubberband. Company agnostic, low ego, high empathy, always supportive. And we are live. Welcome, listeners, to today's episode of the Rubberband podcast, where I am joined by extra special guest, Beth Hall from Culture Edge for a Chinwag. Now, before we begin, I would like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that I live and work on, the Wadawurrung and Dja Dja Wurrung people. I recognise their continuing connection to the land and waterways. I pay my respects to the elders past, present and emerging, and I would like to extend this to all Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. Welcome, my friend, Beth Hall. How you doing?
I'm very good. Thanks so much for having me.
Oh, thank you for joining, and such a treat to catch up with another regional Victorian. Where are you joining me from today, Beth?
I'm joining you from Wurrung Country in Geelong. So, yes, it's all about regional.
Oh, you must be loving this hot weather near Geelong because you're so close to Ocean Grove and, you know, even on the foreshore there on the bay in Geelong with the diving boards, and it's an idyllic paradise in summer weather, I feel.
It is, but hot tip for the listeners, I would not be going in that water by the diving board. Like, that water is questionable. I would definitely make that extra journey to the coast to make sure that you're getting fresh, moving water. Yeah.
That's good to know. I've been very tempted because it does look refreshing in there, and, you know, and that's like a proper free fall diving board, right? Like, it's right up there. But it's beautiful.
Straight into stagnant water.
Yeah. But I love Geelong. It's one of my favourite places. So thanks so much for joining once again. And I guess my first question, we like to go back with the Rubberband podcast and get to know you and get to know a little bit about your history and your background. So are you always from Geelong? Tell me about growing up. Where are you from? Tell me about your family.
Well, you can probably tell from the accent. I am from the UK. I've been in Australia for 17 years now, and I actually followed my parents out. They were the trailblazers that moved here when I was 17. I am the youngest of three, so I just got away with anything and everything because they were so busy focused on the older two that were up to no good that I managed to just go, fly below the radar as the youngest of three. But as you can appreciate, I grew up cold. So growing up watching Home and Away and Neighbours, I decided when I was mid-20s, I decided to raise kids in warmer climates. So I came out here with my husband, Chris, and we've got two Aussie kids.
Amazing. Well, tell me, so you moved to Australia at the age of 17, is that right?
My parents moved. My parents moved when I was 17, and they moved and settled into Ocean Grove. So I used to come here on holidays.
Oh,
but
right.
I had a boyfriend at the time, and I thought it was, long eternal love, and it wasn't. So I was then stuck as an adult in the UK while they were here. And then
so
when I met my husband,
you were like me, like you left home in those teenage years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I think for me, when I reflect on that, I just turned 18 and went into the big smoke and left my parents way too young. But I didn't have the boyfriend at the time. I was just hoping I would find one and thought I'd find one within the city. And look, I did. I found a few of them actually, but they were quite tragic when I look back. But like that time for me at such a young age, I reflect on, and I think it's when I learnt most of my life lessons because you are at that age where you're still absorbing, you're still like a sponge, but you've got to learn to be independent. Like, how was that experience for you at the age of 17?
Yeah, look, it's certainly, and to your point, looking back, you don't realise it at the time, but you look back and you realise how life lessons you learned so early. Like even just when I went to university, even the financial acumen that I had, and, I was working 36-hour a week plus doing a full year university degree, yet my fellow students were struggling to get up and do their part-time bar job. The bills used to arrive at the house and they'd ring the parents to pay them, and I'd ring work to get an extra shift. So just very, very influential in the way I think about decision making, and but didn't realize it at the time. I was just, to me, it was just my life.
Yeah, I know, and that's right. And we don't reflect on it, and we don't realize it at the time. You're absolutely right. But I think back, and even the empathy and appreciation of what I have, because I can remember not being able to buy dinner, and having to rely on friends bringing me a Hungry Jack's and things like that. Those days, right? And the 2-minute noodles, the, what do you call it? Pot noodle in the UK, those days, right? And it just gives you that appreciation for, where we are now. And then it brings me to, having to rely on ourselves financially and having that, I suppose, first job. Beth, like what was your very first job? Tell me about your first foray into the world of work.
My first job actually turned into the first decade of my career. My first job was resetting tables at Pizza Hut. Now, Pizza Hut back in the UK were restaurateurs, don't you know? They weren't this, dodgy delivery place. Like, they were full service dining restaurants. So I started resetting tables, and then made my way to waitressing, and then shift supervisor, manager, all the way through to restaurant general manager, and was there for a decade.
Wow. I remember Pizza Hut was like that here as well, right? But you've still got the dine-in culture over there in the UK. I was there not long ago, and, you've still got the old red and white gingham tablecloth Pizza Huts with the salad bar. Like, it's pretty fab. Yeah. And you mentioned you were at university. What were you studying?
Well, interesting you ask, Eden, because I left home so young, and you didn't have to go to college back then in the UK. So you could leave school at 16. So I left school at 16 because I was earning so much money. I would rather earn money and have fun. And then I realized that uni students were having way more fun than me. Right. So because I didn't have my A-levels, which I'm not sure what they're called here, but whatever the 16 to 18 year.
Either VCE or HSC or state by state.
Because I didn't have them, I applied to the university for a retailing degree, because I said, hey, look at all of my lived experience. You should take me on board as a retail student. So that was my first of 2 undergrads before my master's.
Oh, nice. And then first professional role. Where did you go from there? Did you go into a role after graduating into retail? Like, the retail careers in the UK are very different to retail careers here in Australia. And I have a lot of friends that had fabulous careers in retail before they moved into corporate. Like, tell me about that.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, what do you mean my first professional job? Pizza Hut's very professional.
Oh, totally. Yeah.
Well, actually, I had that job, and then I emigrated to Australia. And when I arrived, I kind of had this moment where I was like, I've sold the house, I've sold my stuff, I've arrived with a husband and a couple of boxes. There's a real life opportunity here for me to pivot and to think differently about my career trajectory. So I wrote a list of energy givers and energy takers. I didn't think about a job. I didn't think about what I wanted to do. I just literally wrote 2 lists. And what fell out of the energy givers list was careers and development and supporting people. Like, they were my happiest moments, when I was able to support people develop their skills and see the impact it had, not only on them, but their families and their lives. So my first professional job was starting my own business. So I worked for myself I learned that if you got a Cert 4 in training and assessment, that you could tell stories for a living. So I was like, I'm going to get that certificate, and then I'm going to collect as many certificates as I can. Started off retail training with the Australian Retail Association, and then picked up work with TAFEs, then started to work with corporates and private businesses. So at this stage, I'd never been in an office. I'd never owned, I'd never been on Microsoft Outlook. Like I was still had that kind of retail hustler mindset when I worked for myself.
And that's a fabulous mindset, right? Like I hadn't been in an office until I was 30 years old. So I can relate to that. Like,
yeah.
I was retail, I was in floristry, I was in, the stores, and I did that, at least 6 days a week until I was 30, right? Like the hustle mindset, I think you bring with you into the corporate world. And I think that's, what's unique about people like us, because you never lose sight of it. It's that work ethic and I don't know, energy. I feel like it's energy, because you're an energetic person as well, right? And you're really passionate and really driven. And I think maybe if you go into the corporate world at a really young age, some of that it's just not there, and you've got to work on it.
Yeah, there's an authenticity in retail for sure. Like we're people. Yeah, we're dealing with the public. So just the way your outlook is very much not concerned with hierarchy or process. It's just, you just get stuff done. So
that's right, because you have to, and you've got to do it in the moment as well. You've got to think on your feet and get it done right then, otherwise you're going to get abused. So, the fun and games of it all, when you think about it, I don't know how we did it.
Yeah. Oh, look, I don't know that I have that hustle as much now, a couple of decades later, but back then, in my 20s, it was great.
I know, I'm an old man. I'm getting a sore back just thinking about it, right? That's too funny. So then, you mentioned you had never worked in an office, and you launched your own business, and you did that Cert 4 in training and assessment, which from anyone that I know within OD or people development or learning, it's actually quite a challenging course. Like it's quite, I suppose, detailed, right? Like, so did you then, did you go into an internal role, or have you continued self-employment throughout your career?
So while I had my own business working for all these different clients, I had my son Joshua, and it worked out perfectly because I was able to literally work feed and be around. But then when I had my daughter Elle 18 months later, I realized that one child is a pet and two children are a zoo. And I was just like, I cannot be a zookeeper and continue working at the rate I was working, juggling all these different clients. So I chose my favorite client at the time, and that was Cotton On Group, and they were based here in Geelong. So that was my first office job, was going in there, and the ask was, please set up our internal learning and development. So it was called Cog Uni, and they said, come and set up our Cog Uni to support DCs, retail and support centre across 19 countries with 22,000 team members. Those are the numbers when I left. There were a lot lower numbers when I joined. And I stayed there for a good 6.5 years. I should have stayed for my long service. I'm not really sure why I didn't. That was
6 months later. Oh, come on.
Yeah.
Especially for someone that works in the field of careers, you should have known that one.
I knew, but it was like I literally resigned at summer, and I was just like, do I want the long service leave or do I want summer off? And summer off won out. Yeah.
Fabulous. And how long were you with Cotton On?
So just under 7 years. I think I was like 3 months off my 7-year point. Yeah.
Wow. And then after, and when you were ready to return to the workforce, is that where Culture Edge came about, or has there been, opportunities and things that you have done between?
Well, when I was at Cotton On Group, I had an absolute whirlwind experience because I started off with Cog Uni, but then I worked directly for the owner, Nige, for a couple of years, literally flying around the globe, emptying his head. And I just absolutely loved working with the founder and understanding founders and how they tick and how they work. So one of the things that I was really passionate about was going to find another founder-led business and helping a founder to be able to build and scale. So I went and worked at Brossa. So Brossa was started by two amazing humans that were both tech product guys that saw an opportunity with furniture. There was too many big players and it was a frictionful experience. So I worked with Bossa for a year. Unfortunately, in that time, they were great at product and tech, and COVID had really allowed them to take off with everybody buying beautiful furniture for their homes. But that didn't work out. So a week before Christmas, I had to stand down an entire workforce and then myself. And then I just literally curled up in a heap and cried for a few hours. So it was an amazing experience, but also a really challenging experience, the impact it had on people's lives. So yeah, that was next for me.
Gosh, it was a hard time. Like, it was that was why I set up Rubberband, because I was seeing all of my friends in the recruitment and talent industry going through exactly what you just described, right? And you know, it's one of those things with COVID. Sometimes I reflect on it and I feel like I've got a bit of survivor's guilt because I was able to stay employed. And I actually, Jason and I, my partner, our relationship really strengthened during COVID, and I really embraced my creativity. And I reflect on, my own experience as being, relatively positive. But for others, it was so hard. And then not to mention the poor people that were sick and the poor people that passed away, right? Like, it was a terrible, terrible time. And, sometimes I feel guilty that, for me, it wasn't such a bad time.
Oh, don't feel guilty. That's such a great story. Shine your light of positivity through it all. And look, I must have misrepresented the situation there. The business grew during COVID. It was post-COVID and coming out of COVID when everyone had already furnished all their homes. The purchase of too much furniture was then in a situation where it couldn't be sold fast enough. So it was a COVID hangover as opposed to...
And we stopped buying online as well, like all online retailers saw a complete, shift straight as soon as we were open, as soon as our doors opened, right? We wanted to get out there and buy things.
Exactly. And I want to sit on the couch. Like, there's no need for me not to sit on the couch. So, and look, I had an amazing COVID experience. I did my master's during COVID. I had a swimming pool in my house at the time. So it was literally couple of hours as teaching the kids and then let's all jump in the pool. So don't feel bad. It was good.
Oh, there we go. I know you got to look at things positively. So then you mentioned being in a heap and you needed to get up again. What happened next? What's next in your journey?
So my best friend at the time, still my best friend, also lost her job at the exact same time as me.
No.
And she got married at that time. So I literally picked myself up from my heap and flew to her wedding. She's, going to the, deli and buying this expensive salami. And I'm going, Nat, stop. Like, what are you doing? We both just lost our jobs. And she's like, oh, we'll find one. It'll be fine. And I did. I went and worked with a team of psychologists in a consultancy business because I'd been working on my undergrad in psychology and thought if I hang around with them, surely some of their intelligence will rub off on me.
Uh-huh. Excellent. And how long did you continue that? I mean, that would be fascinating, right? Like,
it was so much fun.
Right. Yeah,
it was so much fun. Like doing lots of different work, from going into businesses, looking at culture at a systemic level, looking at incivility in organizations and the impact incivility was having on burnout, working with businesses on their leadership development. It was so much fun, and lots of psychometrics, which I love. So that was great. Short and sweet, because I got the general manager position at RE as their head of the general manager of HR standards and capability. So I finished up at the psychology consultancy and moved across to RE.
Wow. And what I love, every time you're describing another role, it's a learning journey for you. And I think sometimes we're attracted to safety when it comes to our career, right? I'm sounding like I've got a psych degree now, Beth, and I most certainly don't. But I know, like, for me, I'm really attracted to things I've never done before because I want to learn and I want to challenge myself, and I quite like a little bit of chaos in my life. But, I love the way that you've approached your career to think, okay, well, I'm going to give this a crack. Yeah. And look what I can learn. And then you're throwing in the education side of it as well. Yeah. Like, that's really inspiring to me because, you know, I love that mindset. Is that, you know, has that been a lesson that you've learned throughout your career, or is that just how you're programmed?
It's how I'm programmed, but also it's by design. So I think in decades. So have fun in my 20s, to earn and work hard in my 30s, to invest in my 40s, to semi-retire in my 50s. Like that has always been my plan since I was in my 20s. And to your point, Eden, maybe that plan was born out of, okay, I'm out of the home, I'm 17, I've got to make some decisions. So this is my investment era, and I was thinking eras before Taylor Swift, so don't start thinking eras. I was already thinking about investment. So for me, it was about investing in my development. I was very deliberate around what I was doing and where I was going and what I was going to be able to pick up from a skills, knowledge, experience, exposure. And I also had FOMO with all of the younger generation coming in and job hopping. And I was like, we were never taught to job hop. Like my first job, I was there for 10 years. My second job, when I wasn't working for myself, I was there for nearly 7. So I thought, do you know what? I want to do some kangaroo hopping around some roles for a while.
Good on you. Good on you. And you know, we're told that when we're teenagers, that terrible time in life where we've got to make these decisions in terms of our careers and our educations, that, you know, what you choose is your life career. That's what our parents taught us. It's our generation, Beth, and to be honest, it really sucks when you think about it. Like, you know, like that curiosity is so important, and that learning mindset, and to not be afraid to, you know, sometimes just jump into the wild and give something a red hot crack. And that's how I got into HR. You know, it was, and likewise yourself, when you talk about your retail career, something's sparked a little bit of interest there, and we've just gone, oh, you know what, let's just see what we can learn here and see where it takes us. I love it. I absolutely love it. What have been the biggest lessons you've learned in your career?
If you're a podcast host or someone wanting to be interviewed on podcasts as a guest, visit podmatch.com. Podmatch automatically connects ideal podcast guests and hosts together for interviews. We always say it works just like a dating app, but instead of connecting you for dates, it connects you for podcast interviews. Podmatch has connected over 85,000 guests and hosts together for interviews that listeners love, all while saving you countless hours of administrative work through built-in automations. If you're ready to level up your podcast interviews on either side of the mic, start today by visiting podmatch.com.
Knowledge empowers performance.
Mm-hmm.
Pick it up, be curious, have a thirst for learning, because that will, you know, serve you well. Be kind. You know, that life's too short. There's too much negativity in the world to be, you know, playing that game. Just be kind to people, you know, just often I look at what's going on in businesses from a cultural perspective, and it's, you know, I think people will look back on that time and go, why was I so bothered by that? Like, why did I become the blocker or the issue for that person? Like, you know, in talent, like, you know, you spend so long trying to find the right candidate, and then, you know, getting the role signed off and passing it up the train and down the train, and like all the things that you've got to do and all the dance moves. And it means that you're taking phone calls from candidates at late on Friday night because someone wouldn't do something earlier on. And I just go, oh, can we just all be kind and just, you know, realize that we're part of a whole, and the more that we help others, the more that, you know, I'm a great believer in reciprocity, and what you put out there is what you get back, not from a, you know, give it to the universe vibe, more in the human sense of be kind to people, and that's what will happen to you. So they're my biggest two: curiosity and kindness.
I can relate to both of those. And I think, you know, I've learnt those lessons. I think particularly around kindness. I mean, I started in recruitment agency world, and it was quite dog eat dog. And I reflect on, you know, probably my first role, and I wasn't kind to everyone, you know, and you sometimes, you know, and then, you know, you learn. And, you know, I think kindness is probably one of my strongest values now. And I always look for organizations that truly believe that. And I think one of the hardest things for HR professionals is we do have an empathetic nature. We've gotten into the business of people because we're I suppose curious about people, but we also love people and we see the good in people. And I think sometimes when we don't see that kindness, it can be really deflating. But the way to, I suppose, tackle that is for us to have that kindness. And always come back to you. I believe. I'm talking karma. I'm getting all spiritual now and everything. Beth, where am I going?
It's fun. I love it. You go for it. I love it. Look, I think we're in the people function. We are part of people's journey and people's experience, whether that be giving them the job of a lifetime and an opportunity in a business, or whether it be making that phone call to say, I'm sorry, you weren't selected for this role. And the way in which we do that leaves a print on people. And to do that with kindness, I think, is an absolute privilege that we have. You know, when I had to stand down that entire workforce, the organisers of that close down was an external business that were brought in to make a profitable exit. And they said, this is the email we're sending out. And I said, we are not sending an email. I am going to eyeball all 400 people and I am going to tell them thank you. And I'm going to list all the things that they have contributed to this business and let them know that is now their exit and what that means, for no other reason than self-regard and self-worth of the people on the other side of that message, you know. And yes, it cost me a day of my time to get all these groups together, but that is the absolute least that I could do. And same with candidate experience, you know, the absolute least that we can do is tell them why, is to give them the gift of feedback to help them on their journey to their next application, you know, give them those tips on the resume or the interview so that it's actually a productive experience. And from a brand perspective, they walk away from that brand going, I would still recommend that brand even though I didn't get the job, because the experience I had showed me that they are kind, caring, humanistic people.
Absolutely. And right, this is where I think a lot of recruiters that operate in that way, where they ghost or, you know, they don't provide feedback. And we know that's out there in the industry. I know the vast majority of us are disappointed it is out there, but it's there. But what that is doing is, you know, if I was to operate in that way at Movember, it would mean that people wouldn't fundraise for Movember because they wouldn't believe that we are actually doing good in the world, because they would be like, oh my God, you hurt me. You know, because it's hurtful, right? And, you know, then it impacts other, you know, brands, because people won't buy their burger at Joe's Burgers if they've been ghosted, right? Like it does have a lasting impact. I was ghosted a few times earlier in my career, and those brands I still avoid. Like it stays with me because it hurt my feelings. And that's where kindness is so important, because it's bigger than you as the recruiter. It's your kindness is impacting more people, and, you know, like it's impacting the organization, it's impacting the brand. It's so important. I couldn't agree more. And something I'm really, really passionate about, that personalized feedback, that someone can still walk away and feel empowered. Right? There's an art to it. You can do it.
Just be human.
How
would you treat your friend? How would you want to be treated yourself, you know? And if you're sitting there going, oh, I'll be fine with an email, just tell me straight, then that doesn't mean that everyone's fine with an email. Like, think it through. So, and look, I think you are definitely representing the Movember brand really well. Like I've had a bit to do with Movember years and years ago, but you certainly, for me, have given it a new kind of lease of life with your talent conversations and your posts. And so it's certainly cutting through from a non-candidate experience too. It's great.
Oh, fab. That's good to hear. I'm very, very passionate about Movember and the cause. But speaking of which, tell me about Culture Edge. Tell me about what you're doing, and what you're up to now, and when and why and how our audience should reach out to you.
Yeah, thank you. Well, as you've heard, I've picked up lots of different experiences, and that curiosity along the way has kind of added to my toolbox and my lived experience over the years. And always decided that I wanted to go back working for myself when the kids were a little bit older, and they're too busy hanging out with their mates now. So I started Culture Edge. And culture being the focus on the lived experience and the environments in which we create for people in the workplace, and the edge being the competitive edge. Like, how do we actually use culture to drive performance? How do we think about culture in a different way? I think, legislation around psychosocial health and various different things that we're doing at a legislative level are really starting to put culture on the radar for organizations. And for me, it's about how do we be compliant with that legislation, but so much more than that, how do we create great experiences in work whereby people feel great about themselves, and therefore they go back to their families and they treat their families well, and it's all part of that environmental influence and support. So I work with lots of different businesses, whether it be leadership development, whether it be psychometrics for selection, whether it be diagnostics on culture, people experience mapping. So working a lot across private and government, small growth, scale up, as well as large organizations. So I'm having lots of fun. I've been doing it since September. And it's been really, really good. When everyone always says, don't they? Oh, they wish they started years ago. So I won't use that line, but it's true. And I'm working with so many great consultants that I've, again, just picked up friendships with along the way. And they're really great, honourable, kind people that also want to make their footprint on the world. So as a collective, we've kind of got together and gone, how do we do cool stuff that we really love and help make a difference along the way? So that's what we're doing. And how to connect with me would be via LinkedIn. I'm always talking about the world of work on LinkedIn, so we'd love to connect with you there. Or we have a website, cultureedge.com.au.
Amazing. Listeners, please do connect in with Beth and check it out. You're doing such amazing work. Congratulations on the business launch in September. So you've passed the 6-month mark. Yeah.
Yes.
That's the tough part. So now you're in there and you're kicking. Good on you. Yeah. Beth, it's been such a pleasure catching up with you today. Thanks for having a chinwag with me, and look forward to catching up with you again really soon.
Thanks, Eden.
Thanks, Beth.